Murder Bunnies by senlinyu. Summary. Hermione leaves her pet rabbit in Draco's care while on a trip. Inevitably, chaos ensues. A Dramione fanfiction. "It'll be fine." "I don't think it will be," Ginny said, looking pained. "I think you should prepare yourself for the fact that it will probably not be fine." Hermione rolled her eyes. "It's a rabbit. I'm only going to be gone for 3 days. What could possibly go wrong?" Ginny sighed. "It's Malfoy. If something can go wrong, Malfoy will find a way." The gates at Malfoy Manor did not open when Hermione returned after 3 days to pick up her rabbit. She sent a Patronus, and it returned, gambolling about at her feet while she tried to imagine what could possibly have gone wrong. "Draco, come give me my rabbit," she shouted through the gate. "I know you're home. You never go anywhere." She was about to scale the wall and just break in when a silver stag bounded up in front of her. "Hermione, could you come to the ministry?" Harry's voice was frazzled. "We have Malfoy. I'm guessing that since you're back, you're probably looking for him." "What happened?" Hermione said, the instant she arrived at the DMLE. Harry looked up at her, expression tired. "You're not allowed to leave your boyfriend unsupervised ever again." Hermione gave a snort, tapping a foot impatiently. "I had to attend that symposium, and you know it. He's been cooperating with you lot for years. Whatever he did can't possibly be all that bad. The ministry's always looking for excuses to arrest him. It's honestly ridiculous. What reason did they invent this time?" Harry inhaled and leaned forward, resting on his elbows as his green eyes met her stare. "While you were gone, Malfoy went on a small killing spree." Hermione rolled her eyes. "Of course he did. And just how did he manage that? He doesn't even have a wand, since apparently he can't be trusted with them." He shoved up his glasses and rubbed at the bridge of his nose. "Well, he got one somehow." He gave Hermione a long look. "He also had a machine gun, which he refuses to explain." Hermione folded her arms, glaring daggers and feeling so hot with rage that she was nearly speechless. "This is the most absurd lie I've heard the ministry come up with yet. They've been trying to get him kissed since the war. This is just another pathetic attempt to seize his inheritance, and we both know it." She scowled and started digging through her bag for a notepad so that she could make a list of all the reasons she was going to sue the ministry over this. "Honestly, Harry, you should feel ashamed." Without looking down, Harry reached behind his desk, pulled out a machine gun, and dropped it on the desk with a resounding clang on the metal desk. "He handed this over, along with the wand, when he turned himself in yesterday." Hermione felt the blood drain from her face, and the floor shifted under her feet as she stared at the gun. "What?" "We didn't know about it until he got here to turn himself in." Harry stood. "He's in a holding cell. You can talk to him yourself." Draco was sitting on the metal bed, entirely unscathed. His legs were stretched out in front of him. His eyes were closed, and his hands folded neatly in his lap. He was dressed in all black. A heavy coat with the collar straightened framed his sharp, angular features, and his pale hair was tousled and hanging over his eyes. "Malfoy, Hermione's here." His silver eyes instantly opened, locking on her face. "Granger?" he said, just the briefest flash of relief in his eyes. Hermione stepped forward, resting a hand on one of the cell bars, studying his face. "Draco, what happened?" He raised an eyebrow and gave a small shrug, as if routine imprisonment was simply an inevitable aspect of his life, which in many ways it was. Being his defense attorney and representing him again and again and again was the reason they'd been forced together so often that they'd started dating. Harry's aura badge gave a soft melodic pink. He glanced down at it. "I'll be right back." Once Harry was gone, Draco stood and walked over to the bars. "Hey." His voice was quiet as he looked down at her. "How was your trip?" Hermione's chest tightened. "Don't you dare try to talk about my stupid symposium." Her voice wavered. What on earth happened to you?
Ah, well.
His voice was light.
There was an attack on the manor while you were away. Death Eaters per the usual. Same drill as always. It would have been fine, but...
He paused, and composure slipped for the first time, throat dripping as he swallowed nervously. Dread clamped around Hermione's chest.
What? They hurt your rabbit.
She stared at him.
What? He's all right,
Draco said quickly, still looking anxious.
He was hit with a stunner and it fractured 2 ribs. It took him in before I came here. The vet said he'll be all right in a few days. I'm sorry. I told you I'd take care of him and that you wouldn't need to worry while you were gone.
Hermione's eyes fluttered closed, and she drew a deep breath. You went on a small murder spree with a machine gun because my rabbit got hurt? She asked the question slowly, trying to make sure she understood. When she opened her eyes, she found that Draco was both unapologetic and unabashed.
It could have been you. I'm tired of sitting around being used as a Death Eater bait. The auras never come quick enough, so I dealt with the situation myself.
Hermione swallowed, trying to wrap her mind around everything that happened. Where did you even get a wand? And a gun?
Draco looked abashed. Well, there's a family tradition of being interred with your wand. I took one from one of the mausoleums a few years back, just for insurance.
She released a disbelieving breath. And a machine gun? Draco shrugged.
My probationary terms don't say that I can't use firearms. I'm only restricted from offensive magic.
Hermione's head felt light, and she suspected she was on the verge of a migraine. She drew a deep breath. All right, she said finally. Well, I'll start to put a case together. We can probably argue self-defense, or maybe plead temporary insanity. Her heart was pounding anxiously as she drew another deep breath, trying to quell the knotting in her stomach. How many people did you kill? Draco was quiet for a moment.
To be honest, it got rather messy towards the end, and I lost track after 8.
Blood was roaring in her ears now, and the room was starting to swim. If Draco ended up in Azkaban or kissed by a Dementor because she'd asked him to watch her rabbit, he was going to have a full mental breakdown. He could already see the room in Janus' Thicky with her name on it. The door down the hall swung open and Harry walked in, holding a scroll.
Right. Your probationary terms have been updated, so once you agree to them, you'll be allowed to return to the manor, assuming that Hermione will vouch for your character and sponsor your release again.
Hermione's mind screeched to a halt, and she stared in surprise. Wait, you're releasing him?
Well, yeah.
Harry looked down at the papers in his hand.
Since everyone Malfoy killed was a Death Eater, wanted dead or alive, the Wizengamot can't press any charges on that count. Malfoy didn't use his own wand, and it was a family heirloom on the estate, so it didn't technically violate any of the wand restrictions since it was examined and confirmed that he only used it for defense spells. And
Harry looked rather disbelieving himself.
There wasn't anything in the terms of his probation that restricted him from owning or using a machine gun. There's not actually anything about them under UK wizarding law either. The Ministry has no grounds to keep him. He can go.
Harry stepped forward and unlocked the cell door. Draco stepped out, straightening his coat and looking unapologetically smug. Harry sighed.
Draco Malfoy, you are no longer allowed firearms per the updated terms of your probation, and the family cemetery had all of its wand removed.
Irritation flashed across Draco's face, and he looked ready to argue. That's fine, Hermione said quickly, taking Draco's hand and squeezing it tightly. I'm sure there won't be any more issues in the future, especially now that Draco has dealt with so many of the Death Eaters for you all. What do I need to sign? Everything was signed and notarized in short order. Draco very reluctantly surrendered ownership of his machine gun to the Ministry, giving one last longing look over his shoulder as Hermione dragged him out of the DMLE. Don't be offended, Hermione said as they stepped outside into the bustling street. But I'm never going to put you on pet-sitting duty again. I can't handle that stress. Draco scowled at that, hurt flashing in his eyes.
It wasn't my fault.
She took his hand and patted him consolingly on the shoulder. I know, I'm not blaming you. It's just that I don't think I could handle coming back from a trip and finding out that my rabbit has also become the reason you bludgeoned someone to death with an antique chair. I think 15 people is more than enough of a death count for a 6-month-old Holland lop. Draco scoffed.
I wouldn't use a chair.
He looked offered by the idea.
I looked over the new terms of my probation. If there is a next time, I'll use a broadsword.
The end.